Everyone assumes prehistoric humans left their sick and disabled behind. Survival of the fittest, nature's cold, resources are scarce. Anyone who couldn't keep up got left at the riverbank. That's not really how it worked. At least, not always. There's a roughly 4,000-year-old skeleton in Vietnam of a young man who was paralyzed from the waist down, with barely any movement left in his arms either. He didn't die quickly. He lived like that for around a decade in a farming community with no wheelchairs, no antibiotics, no concept of a hospital bed. Someone fed him. Someone turned him. Someone kept him alive for 10 years. This video is about what ancient humans actually did with the sick, the disabled, the people who were just different across tens of thousands of years, from Neanderthals to early farmers. It's messier than either the cynics or the optimists wanted to be. There's also a twist coming about one of the most famous proof of ancient compassion skeletons ever found. Turns out archaeologists may have gotten the gender wrong, and maybe the whole story along with it. We'll get there. His name, as much as he has one now, is Burial 9, M9 for short. He was found at a site called Man Bac, south of Hanoi, in a cemetery dated to somewhere around 3,500 to 4,000 years ago. He had a rare congenital condition that fused vertebrae in his neck, and it left him paraplegic at best, quadriplegic at worst, probably from childhood. His head was permanently tilted to one side from the posture damage. He likely had trouble even chewing. Archaeologists checked for the usual signs of neglect, pressure sores where bone breaks down from a body left in one position too long. There weren't any, which means someone was repositioning him regularly for years. That's not survival. That's nursing care 4,000 years before the word existed. And before you picture some noble prehistoric hospice scene, we don't actually know if it was loving. Could have been obligation. Could have been a debt owed to his family. We're projecting tenderness onto bones, and bones don't really do tenderness. For most of the 20th century, the working assumption in archaeology leaned Hobbesian. Prehistoric life was nasty, short, and unsentimental, and anyone who couldn't pull their weight got cut loose, one way or another. It fit the politics of the era more than the evidence, honestly. Survival of the fittest was Herbert Spencer's phrase, not Darwin's, and it got bolted onto ancient humans with way more confidence than the bones actually supported. Then you get someone like Shanidar I, a Neanderthal man found in a cave in northern Iraq who died somewhere between 35 and 45, genuinely old for a Neanderthal. Early in his life, he took a massive blow to the head. It damaged his left eye, probably blinded that side, and paralyzed the right side of his body. His right arm was gone below the elbow or had atrophied so badly from paralysis it looked gone. The bone evidence is still argued over. He walked with a serious limp, and bony growths in his ear canal suggest hearing loss on top of all of it. Picture that. Half-blind, missing or useless an arm, partially deaf, a permanent limp, surviving for decades during an ice age, hunting and gathering. That doesn't happen without people actively keeping him alive. Except, and this is where it gets messier, not everyone agrees on that story anymore. A reassessment in recent years argued Shanidar I might not have been as helpless as the original excavators assumed back in the 1950s. Some researchers, including disabled bioarchaeologists, have pointed out that the early analysis leaned hard on assumptions about what a disabled body can and can't do, assumptions made almost entirely by non-disabled researchers. He may have adapted, found his own role instead of being a permanent dependent. Nobody actually knows which version is closer to true, and that's a detail that doesn't get talked about enough.
There's actually a name for studying all this. It's called the bioarchaeology of care, a whole methodology built around one question. When do a skeleton's injuries get severe enough that the person couldn't have survived without sustained help? Not everyone in the field buys it, though. One anthropologist pushed back hard in the early 90s, arguing that we're basically reading compassion into rocks, that bones can prove someone survived, but not why, or whether anyone felt anything about it at all. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was just not letting a useful pair of hands go to waste, even broken hands. Honestly, I think that tension is the most interesting part of this whole topic. We want it to be a heartwarming story, and the evidence won't fully cooperate. And speaking of getting the story wrong, here's that twist. In a cave in Calabria, southern Italy, there's a double burial that's been one of the most cited ancient humans cared for disability cases for almost 40 years. Two skeletons, found together in 1963. One of them, Romito II, had a rare, severe form of dwarfism, adult height around 3'7", a condition that should have made nomadic hunting and gathering life 11 or 12,000 years ago nearly impossible. The textbook version, for decades, a young man who survived into his late teens despite a disability that should have been a fatal liability, proof his community carried him. Then, just this year, researchers ran ancient DNA on both skeletons. Romito II wasn't a young man at all. She was a teenage girl. And Romito I, the other body in the grave, not some unrelated tribe member, but almost certainly her mother. Two women buried together in what looks like an embrace, one of them carrying a genetic growth disorder she'd passed down to her daughter. So the whole story shifts. It's not the tribe tolerated an unusual member, it's a mother who watched her daughter live an entire short life with a disability and chose, at the end, to be buried holding her. Researchers called it evidence of social cooperation, which is technically true and kind of an undersell for what's actually sitting in that cave. That one got me a little, which isn't really where I expected this script to go. We still don't actually know who fed M9 for 10 years in Vietnam or why. We probably never will. I think the reason this stuff keeps getting argued over is that it's really a question about us, not them, whether care is the default in being human or the exception. The bones don't settle it. They just make the easy, callous answer impossible to hold on to. If you're the kind of person who finds a half-solved mystery more interesting than a clean one, there's more of it here. Although, Shanidar 1's arm, 40 years of study, and we still don't know for certain if it was amputated or just withered away, which, weirdly, is kind of the whole point.